George Pickens had a huge day at Cowboys practice. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Landon, the Cowboys had another OTA practice that was available to the media on Tuesday. And one of the biggest items coming out of Cowboys practice, number one, George Pickens has chosen a number. It's number 3. I don't know why people care about this so much, but this is like all anybody was talking about on social media the last 2 weeks. He has a new number. It's number 3.
Yeah, it certainly is a topic for a certain segment of fandom that like really is concerning themselves with this sort of thing. Which whatever. I mean, I guess if you like jerseys or whatever, that's the thing. It was a true jersey swap, like an actual jersey swap between him and Fowler. They swapped 3 and 13, so Fowler has also changed his number to 13. But
Which
yeah,
is weird. I don't love that for Fowler, but whatever.
It's funny. That's funny because it feels Dave Homan said the opposite, where he's like, about Pickens at 3, but I like Fowler at 13 with the potential double-digit sack guy. So we'll see. But I don't know. I like both of these numbers for these guys better than their previous numbers. I'll just say that.
That's enough Jersey talk. That's probably the last time we'll have a Jersey talk here on Locked On Cowboys. But the big item was that George Pickens had a big day at Cowboys practice, including a really impressive touchdown in the red zone with Dak Prescott. It seemed like it was in the back of the end zone. He made a circus catch, got his feet down. I will say today, for the first time since the Cowboys have made the George Pickens trade, seeing him wear the number 3 uniform, hearing people talk about some of the plays that he was making in practice. This was like the first time that I got kind of excited about the move. And I know I know I've been very strong on my opinion on the George Pickens trade, but this is like the first time the fan has come out in me where I'm like, okay, this could be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be very fun. I think that's the part that we'll see how long it stays fun, or how if it is fun for the entirety of the time he's here. But yeah, he caught a touchdown. It sounded like a little toe touch situation, very similar to a guy who used to wear 13. And I'm not talking about Pickens. So
Michael Gallup, yeah.
I mean, so and then there was also another situation in which he got loose behind the defense, and the ball was a little underthrown, and Elam was able to break it up. But so he is getting open. He is catching touchdowns. It's not just all jersey intrigue. He's out there actually doing stuff as well. And it sounds like especially with CD taking a Veterans Day or whatever it was today.
I can't believe we're at the point of CD's career where he's taking vet days.
Well, I also think it's OTA review day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he knows the offense. So it was more important for
I'm pretty sure if you're saying Javonte Williams is the starter at running back, and we'll get to that in a little bit, I'm pretty sure CeeDee Lamb is the 3rd oldest starter on offense behind only Dak Prescott and Terrence Steele.
It's funny because we were talking, the other day about like how all these guys were not on their cell phones and how impressive that was. And part of that conversation was us trying to figure out who the oldest players were on this team, and just how eternally depressing that is. That Dak Prescott is like the almost 10-year vet, right?
He's 9-year vet now. Yeah,
10-year vet. So yeah, Donovan Wilson is like an old man at this point now in the defense. So yeah, it's funny, like how as the years have gone by, like how much that has changed, and how much the tenor of the team has changed.
Yeah, but back to Pickens, I think these kind of performances are what get you so excited. And I think I've always thought that George Pickens is a little overmatched as a wide receiver 1, because generally, I think maybe more so now in today's NFL, you want your wide receiver 1 to be consistent, reliable, and able to handle a heavy workload, where maybe like in the early 2000s or maybe, even early 2010s, you could have your wide receiver one be a little bit more volatile.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's Pickens. But I think when he's your wide receiver too, and he can give you these ridiculous splash plays and these toe tap catches and acrobatic touchdowns in the back of the end zone. Now you're talking about having a different level that you can get to on offense.
Well, and again, also it's the classic case of you're getting the benefit of his reputation precedes him, right? Like where he's defenses are going to be afraid of him because he is such a dynamic playmaker, and even in small spurts, like he's just such a he could create and get down the field so easily that even when he's not being targeted, the Cowboys offense is going to feel the benefit of having him on the field just because of the gravity that he pulls the defense away from guys like CeeDee Lamb in the run game.
So I was also looking at all of Dak Prescott's number 2 receivers since he's entered the league. And if you take their numbers and you average them together, it's like basically 60 catches for 750 yards and 5 touchdowns. And I think George Pickens is going to beat those numbers. I don't think he's going to need to do a lot to beat those numbers. Do I think he's going to get to 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns? Probably not. But the benefit of having a wide receiver 2 like this is for the exact situation that played out in camp on Tuesday. Like CeeDee Lamb is out. Okay, now we have George Pickens, so the rest of the offense doesn't fall apart. The Cowboys just have not had that luxury over the last couple of years where if CeeDee Lamb is hurt and banged up, he's going to have to play through it because they have nobody else. I think now if something were to happen to CeeDee, you feel comfortable getting through a game or two with Pickens as your wide receiver 1. That's just another benefit of having a player like this on your roster.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's not having to rely on him to be consistent for 18 games as the wide receiver 1. You feel very comfortable with the idea of Pickens having to be your wide receiver 1 if you needed him to for multiple games. Yeah, absolutely. So, but yes, again, another huge benefit of really reaching for the stars when they were going for their wide receiver 2 position and not settling, really for even a lesser rookie. Because if you think about that situation, like, what if CD has to sit out week 3 and you've got some, even a first round rookie, even if it was Tet, it would have been a big ask to ask them to be the kind of alpha dog in your passing attack early in their career.
I think Tedder McMillan would have been a little bit different for me because you're expecting him to kind of grow into that role. But
I think that's why he was the exception, right? Like that's why,
this is why I push back so much on like Matthew Golden at 12 for the Cowboys is I feel like he is going to be a career number 2 receiver, and drafting a career number 2 receiver without that wide receiver 1 upside at 12 always felt a little rich to me. But drafting a guard at 12 also feels a little rich too. But that's a different story, later, different time.
I mean, we've had that conversation over time. But yes, listen, again, this is why this was the better route to take, than drafting. Unless if you weren't going to get Tet, then everything else short of this would have left you feeling wanting if anything were to happen to CeeDee Lamb for an extended period of time.
We should also mention Jalen Tolbert had a big day, caught a touchdown in the back of the end zone. If you missed our show on Tuesday, we talked about why Jalen Tolbert could be in for a big breakout season in 2025. So check that out. But Landon, I want to talk about the quarterbacks and some offensive line news that we got coming out of OTAs on Tuesday. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. The NBA Finals start on Thursday. I've been backing the Thunder through the entire playoffs. I think they're going to win the championship. Go check out the MVP lines. I think that's the best bang for your buck right now on FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to fanduel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are breaking down all of the news and notes coming out of Cowboys OTAs. Let's start with the quarterback here, Landon. Dak Prescott. It sounds like he had kind of an up and down day. We're not counting OTA stats like some of these other poverty franchises. We're not doing that. But it did seem like, according to everybody who was on hand, he had a really strong red zone period.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing. We've had some, there's been an interesting transition in Dak's career since he's kind of taken a step back from using his legs more regularly. And I think part of that transition has been about, what kind of red zone offense this is going to be, right? Because I felt like a big portion of his early career success included the fact that he could be a real threat with his legs. And I still think he can be in certain situations, but he's not the weapon that he was as a runner of the football in the
Think about like 2016, 2017. It was either Zeke getting an inside carry, Dak keeping it on a read option, or a fade to Des Bryant. That's all they really ever needed to do in the red zone.
Yeah, it's complete, offense into itself with built-in constraints. And I think so. To see Dak kind of continue his progression here and to kind of have this level of crispness. And again, it's not just coincidence, as we just spoke about in last segment, that it's happening with the addition of George Pickens. I think another big body target near the red zone who is an athlete who can, make the plays, has a huge catch radius. I think that helps.
Body contortion.
And say body control and contortion. Yeah, I think it's having that kind of guy available to you when you're in the red zone obviously opens up a lot more things for you. So I think it's having, options. It's having guys who can make plays for you. That's really what I think is going to make the difference. And I think that, hopefully running the football a lot better will allow the threat of that, just like we talked about with Pickens, right? The threat of running the football or maybe being a better running team in the red zone will, help Dak Prescott open up windows as teams are focused on trying to stop the run.
I also think there's just a lot of continuity on offense right now from, Dak and CD have been together. This will be year 6. This will be year 4 for Jake Ferguson, year 4 for Jalen Tolbert. Obviously, Pickens is the new piece here, but there's just a lot of experience with all of these receivers now. So I think it sounds like on one of the Jalen Tolbert touchdowns, he kind of settled into a soft spot in the zone, and that's how Dak found him. I just think these guys have a lot of reps together. That's how you get really good in these red zone situations where the windows are really small and things happen very fast.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've talked about with Tolbert more than anything is that the guy has spent just a ton of time around Dak Prescott. They work out together, they throw the ball together, they watch tape together, and I think that's where you see this sort of chemistry getting built, especially in the red zone where things are incredibly tight, right? Like it's important for these guys to sit down and watch tape together. So Tolbert sees what Dak is seeing when he's in the pocket. He understands what Dak is thinking, and he knows how to make himself available as an outlet, as an option for Dak, and where to be, understanding where the defense is, understanding where Dak wants to and likely escape the pocket to, and then where to find the soft spot in the coverage to make yourself available and to make a play for Dak as he's trying to make a play outside the pocket. And I think that's something that, yeah, you're right. Just years and years of chemistry is going to make better. We could say what we want about Tolbert as a on schedule receiver, a route runner versus man coverage against top corners, but as an off schedule improv, scramble drill receiver, you couldn't ask for a better partner in crime for Dak than a guy that's been basically sitting next to him for every practice and film session since he got here.
All right, I'm going to read this note from Nick Harris from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. He said, "We saw this Joe Milton experience was on full display on Tuesday. A 44-yard bomb to Jalen Brooks down the right sideline on a free play was beautifully placed. He also threw a pick six to Damone Clark. We'll talk about Damone Clark on Thursday show, so be on the lookout for that. But overall, went 7 of 9. Will Grier, the third quarterback, 2 for 2. So when we talk about like the Cowboys, hey, they should be drafting these quarterbacks late, or why not grab this guy in round 5, this guy in round 6? You kind of see why. Like Will Grier got 2 reps total during this practice. There's just not very many opportunities. But I wanted your thoughts on Joe Milton before we move on.
It's still the Joe Milton experience until we see otherwise, right? Like it's high highs and low lows, and it's a little bit. It's interesting. It's interesting now, but as we get closer to the regular season, it becomes about what is the true backup plan? Is Joe Milton the true backup plan? Which it may be. And look, let's also not overreact to practice, because Dak by those terms didn't have a great practice at certain points. And Dak, if we talked about it, I was just talking about it the other day. Dak was a terrible practice player early in his career, and has openly admitted that he tries things in practice that he would never try in a game, right? Yes. So I think we should give Milton some grace here. I think he's shown that he has ability. The question is about consistency, I think. But as we get closer and closer to the regular season, it's going to be interesting to see, like, is this what the plan is? Or, is Will Grier potentially the backup while they're developing Milton? I don't know. I certainly think Milton is worth having and developing. My question is, if Dak gets hurt, what's that going to look like depending on where we are in the season, right? And
I also wouldn't be surprised if Joe Milton is the quarterback 2 if Dak were to miss multiple games, but Will Grier is the quarterback that comes in if Dak goes out for a series, right? Like, he just might need fewer reps to be ready for a shorter amount of time. But Milton's the guy that, hey, if we're going a long stretch without Dak, he's in the game. Couple of offensive line notes before we move on, Landon. And I feel like we have to talk about this one. We've been wondering for a while who the backup left tackle was going to be, with Chuma Udoga gone in free agency. And it seems like the player that's getting the first shot at winning that swing tackle job is Asim Richards, a tackle that they drafted out of North Carolina 3 years ago now, I believe. It's been a while. We really liked him. We thought he played well last year when he was in the game. What are your thoughts on him staying at left tackle?
Yeah, just super, super happy for our guy, Asim Richards. I mean, 5th round pick in 2023, right? And just immediately looked a caliber or 2 higher than that when he came in as a rookie. Comes in last year and it just looks like a guy who's ready to compete for playing time. I mean, maybe not as a starter, but Willie looked like he was ready to compete for being a key backup, right? And lo and behold, there was lots of injuries last year and lots of stuff that went on. He got tons of playing time and got lots of opportunity and played well whenever he did. And was actually one of the better offensive linemen at points when he was playing. Fully earned this opportunity. I feel like fully earned this opportunity to be the kind of swing backup left tackle, whatever you want to call it. So I'm certainly thrilled, and I certainly think he's up for the job. Like I said, we haven't seen what he's done in the offseason, but I have to imagine he's taken a step forward. And even if he hasn't, what we saw last year was very impressive for a guy that hasn't been playing a ton, hasn't gotten a ton of reps because of his stature, but he's going to get a lot more opportunity coming up.
One of the things that I'm curious to see from Brian Schottenheimer and this coaching staff is, I thought Jason Garrett did a really poor job of, whenever there was an injury on the offensive line, adapting for it, right? The Cowboys would have 2 all-pros in their offensive line, a couple other good starters, but they would have one bad player on the line. It would have completely ruined the game plan, right? Yeah. I think everybody remembers the Falcon game that I'm talking about, yes. Right? Where I thought Mike McCarthy, with a lesser offensive line, actually did a pretty good job of helping out his tackles. Chuma Udoga started a lot of games over the last couple of years. Tyler Smith was a rookie left tackle that they did a good job of adapting. Last year they had offensive line injuries all over the place. I'm curious to see how Schottenheimer and this crew does when a guy like Asim Richards has to get on the field. Like, do they get him ready to play? Can they come up with a game plan to protect their offensive line? I think once we know the answer to that, I think we'll know how this coaching staff is going to do.
Yeah, how much of that was a McCarthy thing? You wonder, right?
I don't
like,
know.
and we certainly gave him a lot of his due credit for that when he was here, right? And I felt like it was something that we felt like that was an improvement from Garrett was the
Massive improvement.
The willingness to kind of lean into the youth and allow them to play and take their lumps, and they grew fast because of that, right? It is going to be interesting to see where Schottenheimer kind of falls on the spectrum between Garrett and McCarthy.
Hopefully better than those guys, but we'll see.
That'd be great. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the running back situation because Miles Sanders continues to be a surprising name during OTAs. Is it hype or is it maybe some stuff we should ignore? We'll get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, last note here, and this one again from Nick Harris. He says, I continue to like what I see from Miles Sanders. He looks super fresh. He should. He hardly played over the last 2 years for Carolina, but that was me adding that note in. But do you believe that Miles Sanders has a legitimate shot to be RB1 here?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he has a legitimate shot, and because I think the question should be, how, if Miles Sanders becomes running back one, how long does he retain running back one? Because to me, with Sanders, it's about once he starts taking hits, once he starts taking lower body shots, like does that fresh look that he had in OTAs in early June still kind of continue, as we get into November and December, right? I think that, that's why you have Miles and Javonte Williams and obviously Jaden Blue, and they're probably going to use Phil Maffa, right? So I think that the thing with Sanders is that I believe that when he's fresh, he can still look explosive. I still, have my doubts for what is it like after he's taken, 7 to 9 carries a game for 16 weeks.
Yeah.
How does it look then? And again, that's I would stress that's why you have him as part of a committee and not your workhorse running back one, because I don't think that if you put all your eggs in the Miles Sanders basket because he looked great in June, and you built your offense around giving him 20 touches, man, by October, he may look like, a third-team running back because he's just taken too many hits and he's just not running the same. And again, also, age is also part of all of this. So I do believe that Sanders, when all guys are equal and fresh and there hasn't been any pads on yet, I do believe that Sanders could easily be the guy that looks the most impressive in shorts. I think the question becomes, when the pads come on and he's taken a couple of shots to his knees, does that burst still exist? Is that burst still the same? And here's the other part. Once that burst is gone, what does he look like as a running back at that point? Because I think that's the other part of the problem, is that his whole game is built on that kind of burst. And once it kind of is sapped in season, he becomes a lot less useful of a running back.
I mean, that's why I have a hard time buying the hype right now. As Miles Sanders, your sub 210-pound running back that's running in shorts, not having to worry about a linebacker coming down and hitting him. Yeah, I'm not surprised he looks good. Whereas Javonte Williams, he's always been a between the tackle pile mover. There's not very many piles to be moved in OTA, so it's not shocking to me that he looks better. I want to see what it looks like when we get into training camp. If there's any hitting in training camp, we'll see. You'll be there watching, so you can give us a good idea. But I do think it's notable that multiple beat writers have thought he's looked athletic, he's looked explosive. So I'm at least I'm putting a pin in that. Now, I wanted to ask you about Jaden Blue, who's been working with the second team. Again, we should mention that Brian Schottenheimer even mentioned in his press conference today, they're not really doing ones and twos or anything like that. They're doing a lot of rotating, but it does seem like Jaden Blue is ahead of some guys like Deuce Vaughn, Phil Maffa, some of the running backs like that on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's a teaching session, so they're trying to get guys in so that they can give them reps to learn the offense, right? And Jaden Blue is obviously a guy that we talked about that they want to be a focus of the offense, right? So he has to kind of be in the top, near the top of the rotation, just simply to make sure that we're giving him enough reps for him to learn. However, it's also the other guys need the reps too. So that's why you're seeing the veterans kind of, the guys that that will do it correctly, taking these first set probably is just to facilitate, to make sure it looks correct while Jaden is getting his feet underneath.
I'm just not going to overreact to any Cowboys running back news until we get to training camp. And even then, I might have to wait until we get to like week 1, because this running backfield, I think it's going to change. I think they're going to use a committee, and I think they're going to use the hot hand approach. Like if one guy is running really well in September and then not so much in late October, I don't think they're going to be stuck to one singular running back. So don't have any hard takes here early June, because a lot's going to change. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. On tomorrow's show, we'll take a look at some of the biggest stars on defense from OTAs and all of the latest news and nuggets.